What is going on, guys? We are back with another Pop Culture Crisis movie review that is not a movie review. It is a review for Reacher Season 2, Episode 6. And as you know, I've been reviewing each of these episodes one by one, but I am not here alone today. Look who joined me. Wesley.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, and good, too, because, nobody, I feel like I'm all alone on this thing, right?
No, I like this.
Nobody here, would have reviewed it, right?
Yeah.
So you happened to mention me the other day. But I was telling everybody, I fell behind. I definitely fell behind over the holiday break. So we got one more to review after this. But it's very, very exciting to me because this is, for the most part, the only show on television that I've actually really, really liked in the last several years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot. But this is an interesting beast, this show. It breaks a bunch of network rules while still following the network formula.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I was thinking about it last night. I watched one of the episodes, and where a normal network TV show wouldn't kill people, this show kills people and revels in it.
What example?
What show?
What example of somebody where they did that in this? I mean, they definitely do that because for the most part, if it was a network show, you're still kind of playing by the rules of the law. Whereas in this,
right.
It's you forget that the law even is really a thing.
Right.
Well,
in the network shows, they're this person
Atlantic
doesn't kill
City.
a person, so you would like them or that you identify with them more. But this show wants you to identify with them for the fact that they take no prisoners, no quarter. They're just you are a bad person. If I don't do this, you're going to kill other people. Somebody that's my friends. That is one of my friends, and they just eviscerate them in glorious fashion. So
in this episode, we pick up right where we left off, essentially, which is where the whole team is about to send this guy into a warehouse to confront supposedly Swan. When the warehouse then blows up, and it kind of. For O'Donnell's mind, it answers his question about whether Swan is innocent or guilty. Of course, that ends up coming up later. Guys, I do want to mention we are going to get into spoiler territory. Yep. I always mention that beforehand, or I try to always mention that beforehand, but it's very hard to talk about stuff like this unless you actually talk about what happened in the actual episode. But from there... what happens is they have to track down Marlowe, who is the head of operations for the company New Age, which is where this whole thing is taking place around. It's the head of security, Langston, who is running this the security apparatus for this company and putting together this deal for these microchips that are going into these missiles. And that's the whole. It's almost it's funny because to me the plot elements there, they really are just a vehicle for the personal stories or the motives of the people involved, which is to see if their friend is innocent or guilty, right, and for them to be able to get revenge. What I find funny about this is the character I like, perhaps more than anyone other than Reacher, gets very little screen time, and that's the bad guy, AM, who I just wish we could get more of in the series. You get a little bit of that in here because he gets stopped at a rest stop. The problem is I wanted more of that, and it seems like every episode is basically you get one interlude with him.
Yeah, and the way they treat it, I like it. I kind of like the mystery. I understand what you mean, but it is sort of Dexter-esque in how they treat him, where it's you get little vignettes of what kind of person this is to set you up for this inevitable confrontation. Yeah.
Well, the problem I had with season 1 is it felt like it's the same thing, right? For as much as I loved the Reacher character, I felt like they didn't really. The bad guys were underdeveloped in that season.
I mean, it's kind of the point of the show, really, is just following this lumbering piece of muscle, and identifying with what's going on. His backstory was really the center point of this first season.
They have used the flashbacks sparingly, which I like. They don't feel the need to over-explain.
I don't like the flashbacks in this season.
That's what I'm saying. Minimal.
Yeah.
No, I thought the one in episode 5 was necessary to So in episode 5, if you guys remember, Swan basically throws himself in front of a bullet to save Reacher, which
that was
informs which informs for him why somebody like O'Donnell, who by the way is the most suspicious character in this entire show. I don't care what anyone says. O'Donnell and Dixon are both extremely suspicious to me. At least Dixon is now, as of this episode. 2 sex scenes in one season. Yeah. What is she trying to distract him from? Yeah. But the point is that he kept throwing suspicion on Swan because he says, look, all of this evidence is mounting against this character. It's time we actually consider the idea that he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
And Reacher never is willing to actually even entertain that concept, and you see why in this episode. In the last episode.
Yeah. O'Donnell, I'm very agnostic on, in the sense that I don't think they've set up enough or given enough clue. One clue, I think, that he's not clean, and that's when they're at the opera, or they're waiting at the outside the opera, and he's like, I had to give my kids my burner number. Yeah. Like, that's suspicious. You don't do that. And then the other thing is, like, they are hitting so hard that he's changed.
Well, that was the point I made. It's like in every episode, he mentions a couple of things. He says, have I ever told you you're smart, Neely? And then it seems like in every episode, he mentions, like, wow, you're so different from when you were in the military.
Yeah. If he's dirty, it's going to be like, I have kids, Reacher. Yeah. I have kids now. I had to do this. Yeah. And it's like, that's the only justification, that in the phone call. Other than that, they have not, like, I don't like obvious, where it's like everybody leaves the room and they like look at them cross and take out their phone. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this guy's bad. Yeah. So I guess this would be somewhat subtle, but it would also be really disappointing because I kind of like the character.
Right. And so the first 20 minutes of this episode is set up, which is them having to track down the character of Marlo and her daughter through means from Neely, who tracks her down via her gamer tag, which is becoming an increasingly common plot element in shows like this. It's kind of like when they use the when your car has like a fast pass in a show, and they just track the fast pass.
It's like in the 90s when like people were like, oh, computers are a thing. We hacked the mainframe.
You know, my favorite is, and that is a trope you never see anymore, when somebody sits down to a computer to crack the password and they look around for a clue. And they're like, oh, look, there's a red balloon over there. Like, and they type in red balloon, and that's the password. Like, it's funny how that works, right? Yeah. So the first half is all set up between that, and then also the setup with the character of Guy Russo, who confronts his lieutenant at his home by the fantastic Al Sapienza, who's one of my favorite actors from television. He's just, if you've watched any
Al Sapienza,
that's the name of the actor who plays his lieutenant, right?
Discount Michael Keaton?
No, man, he's his own person, man. I love that guy. So he's played a cop, and a crooked cop at that, in just about everything. He's actually in this show. He does a really funny episode of this show called Private Eyes, where he plays he's like an Italian businessman. And they keep accusing him of being in the mafia, and he goes, that's racial profiling, and it's the whole thing is really, really funny. But I love that actor, and they have a good back and forth here. It's very, very old school and in evoking 9/11 and the themes of betrayal amongst the police department, which I just feel like these days they would actually cheer on the idea that the cops are crooked, rather where in this, it seemed like the story's willing to say, like, this is not a good thing. We don't celebrate ideas like this. And it really does give that character of Guy Russo, his own arc, which really does come to a head here, because the second half of this episode is all action. For the most, which this show has been lacking in this season. There's been action interspersed, almost to the point where it felt a little bit like they needed to, like they begrudgingly needed to add an action scene all the time. Like, none of it felt all that inspired, particularly the biker that confrontation.
Cool confrontation, poorly executed.
Well, so was not the one in horrible. Episode 3 with or 4 with the burial episode, where they have the confrontation with the world's worst assassins in the graveyard, and then the most mediocre car chase ever. Like I said, this show succeeds mainly on its characterization and your desire to want to see these characters interact together, which is funny because most of the characters are pretty closed off. So you have to be predisposed to liking the story.
Yeah. I think action-wise, the show shines and it's at its best when the action is really stripped down. Like, there is what's the word? There's a catharsis to seeing somebody that size dispatch somebody very, very easily.
Well, the very first one you get in season 2, where he just punches his hand through the car window, and then pulls the guy out. That works.
That works, yeah. But when it's like the camera's moving all over the place, there's people running around. It's like, you don't have John Wick budget. You don't have John Wick action coordinators. You don't have any of that. So it's going to, even if 20 years ago this would have looked great, or even 10 years ago it would have looked pretty good, right? Yeah. But that bar has been raised so much that you have to lean towards your strengths, which is Alan Ritchson being a hoss. Yes. And that's really satisfying to watch. And I think they should lean into it more. You said to me the other day that you feel like he was being backgrounded. I don't know that I agree with that, but I do feel like they're having to lower him to make the others seem higher. Like,
well, yeah, I actually pointed that out. I said, like, one of the things that I liked about the show initially in season 2 was that they don't fall into the trap as much where they make the main character really, really smart, but they make the other characters stupid at the expense of the main character. You think it's actually going a little bit the opposite. You think that that he's lowered so that they can
power level.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, yeah.
they're like saying, like, look, they can all hold their own, and it's like, this dude doesn't need them.
Yeah.
Like, but they are having to make like Dixon and O'Donnell look like formidable.
Yeah. And
they may be for what they are.
Yeah.
But like the idea of Jack Reacher is that this dude is like a force of nature that just brutally forces
dispatches
his way.
with people.
Yeah, and like there is that is there, but they are having to like nerf him a little bit.
I do find that one of the strengths of this show is it's unapologetically not current year in its characterization, and it doesn't really fall into the tropes that seems to have been destroying much of. There is none of the current year that infected Rings of Power or Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
I make this point a lot. I say that I feel like they consider, which a lot of people refer to shows like this as like dad TV, and I think they fall into this.
And what's wrong with that?
That's right? Like, so, but to me, I said, like, because this show doesn't have the cultural influence that they want, they just leave it alone, which I appreciate because I want them to leave it alone because I want the show to be able to be its own thing.
It's the most watched show on Amazon of all time this season. That's crazy. So I think it does have influence, and I think it does send a message. But what message?
But it's not reaching the new audience that they want to get.
It's reaching a really big audience.
It's reaching the adult. There's just a lot of adult males in this country that want to watch the show, and I'm guessing there's some adult females that just want to see Alan Ritchson without a shirt on.
Did you see the Babylon Bee thing?
Yes,
like they watch it for the ripped plot.
Yes.
Oh no, I saw that from you. Yeah,
and that's what it is. So the other thing about this here is you get almost an entirely full arc for the character of Guy Russo, who's had these confrontational interactions with Reacher the whole season. Basically, he says we're gonna fight, and that comes important in this one too because it's basically like it's like Chekhov's gun. It's the opposite of it. You're not going to get that fight that you think they're going to get. So what happens is after they confront Marlo, she has tricked her way into her friend's house so that she can hide out, and then they basically interrogate her, and then they send her daughter off to basically be protected by the Guy Russo character while they go to set a trap for Langston and his cronies. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to overlook I thought very funny fake suppressor.
Yeah. I was like, there's not even any steel wool in there, bro. It's not going to do anything.
It's like it's a water bottle, bro.
And they all just laugh at the guy. It's like, what is that guy supposed to know? That guy was like, that guy looked like he was an interior decorator. Okay. That guy doesn't know anything about suppressors. Right? Yeah. But look.
It's a rare moment of levity from Jack Reacher.
They have a couple of those throughout the show. Like, that's the thing, though. If you notice, like, the score on the show is always foreboding. It's always intense and foreboding. So you have to have those moments of levity that show up throughout. Usually it's his interactions with the rest of the team. Well, they call him oversized and the Hulk, right? Yeah. That's the little moments of levity that you get for this show. So what happens is they send her off, and you really do get like a hero's exit for his character as he does everything in his power to protect Marlo's daughter, while the rest of the team goes and tries to lay a trap for Langston in this basically like this, what was it, like a junkyard. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's like where they're stationed in the bus. I don't know what.
Not junkyard. Like a parking facility. Yeah. For tractor trailers.
So. Yeah, so you go through that there. This is where I think it would have helped if Robert Patrick was a little bit younger. He's getting up there in age, so he's not.
He's a good villain, but
he's a great villain. He's got the voice for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did like a 3-episode arc in Person of Interest, or I'm sorry, not in Burn Notice, where he basically plays a very similar character. He runs a telecommunications company that's employing private military contractors, basically to bump his cash flow by causing conflict all over the world. And he has a very similar type of character arc in that show, but that was like a decade ago, and he was younger then. So you get this interaction where basically Reacher has to dispatch with most of these guys on his own because he sends the rest of the team off to try and rescue Russo, who, as he is leaving his house with Marlo's daughter, gets chased by a bunch of thugs with automatic weapons and unlimited magazines.
Yep.
Which is
just a huge cache of ammunition.
They were just, they must have been, I'll just assume they were unloading and reloading rather than, So, and you get a very, very touching moment here where he makes the decision to send her off and then basically walk into gunfire to protect her, right? Mm-hmm. And again, this is the type of heroic storyline that I want to see in movies and television.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't pretend to be it doesn't pretend to be lighter than it needs to be. It doesn't have moments of levity throughout it. When it's serious, it stays serious.
Yeah.
Did that scene speak to you?
It did. Yeah. Like I won't say that I wasn't watching and thinking like there has to be another option here, but he didn't take that option. He took the
he's a cop, not a military strategist
right.
or anything like that.
Right. But also like a couple of seconds, they would have been there. Like, I know that's the tragedy. Yeah. But like I was kind of torn on like him dying, like him taking a bullet. Makes sense. So that there could have been this, moment. I wanted a moment of like absolution between him and Reacher towards the end of the season, like at the fight.
What you get there is actually, it's weird. It was a weird place to place it, but you get essentially, it's not absolution between him and Reacher, but you get to see growth in character for Neely, who clearly looks like, if you guys have been watching the show, again, I don't know why you'd be watching this if you're not watching it, but for her character, she's not a fan of touching other people. You essentially get the character of Neely overcoming that discomfort of actually touching other human beings so that she can comfort the character of Guy Russo as he is dying, which I found to be particularly good. I liked it a lot. You felt like it should have been a moment between him and Reacher, but they gave it to her here despite the fact that they didn't really have any sort of connection.
Yeah, she already seemed to like like when Reacher and him would like go at it a little bit, her facial expressions, her characterization there was sort of like you guys like each other deep down. He's trying really hard, and so that it was a strange choice. And I guess you could say like, okay, that might be how it happens.
I mean, in the real world,
life.
I guess in the real world's messy. So
right,
but storytelling wise,
like you, this show's not exactly created to be realistic, but I would have liked that moment. I would have liked some sort of resolution there. Something does come of it eventually, but like it left a lot to be desired, even though I thought it was a pretty good scene. It's strangely shot though, I thought.
In what way?
Because it was in that tight like underpass, and like I thought like it geographically was hard to follow. It felt like a.
I mean, all the action in the show is one of the downsides that geographically, like that is actually the word for it. Is like you don't actually understand where people are or what's going on. In
same with the truck
scenes.
scene. Like you're like, I don't understand. Good scene though. The truck scene, that was effective. I would like to defend that. It was very like Jaws-esque, and I enjoyed that. Just brute like, and then the under the truck thing.
Loved pulling him under the truck. That was great.
Really very monster.
Because the way it's shot, it feels like he's going to come down from on top. Yeah. Right? Like it feels like he's going to land on top of him and say pulls him underneath, which makes way more sense.
Yeah, he pulled the rug on him and us.
How would you like to see it conclude?
The season?
Yeah. Okay, and that's the other big element here is you do get information that the character of Swan is not a bad guy.
As far as we know.
Because
they did tease that he tried to steal drugs.
Yes, earlier in the season.
Yeah, early in the season. And if that was a misdirect, it's a really manipulative one because he acted super suspicious. And like he did the whole look and like just pulled it out and like, oh, here it is. And
should have let somebody else find it.
Yeah. But or hide it better because it was like under the seat.
Yeah.
Like very obvious.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it's trying to have his cake and eat it too with Swan. So I would be interested to see. I'm interested to see what happens there. There was also in this episode there was when the corrupt cop and Russo are talking. He said something about like Franzi was not involved with what his wife was involved in.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know what that is supposed to imply.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll find out.
Yep, we'll have to wait and see. Guys, let us know down below what you thought of this episode. We are going to do an episode 7 review on Monday. Of course, that episode is already out, but I'm behind schedule right now. I'm working.
Oh, I will tell you what I hope happens. I hope that the bad guys die because they do something wrong with the chips and one of the own missiles blows them all up.
That's perfect. Yes. That's exactly what should happen, right? That's perfect. All right, guys, let us know down below what you thought of episode 6. I found it interesting that when I discuss this show with people online, people seem to universally love it. But I look in the comment section when I do these reviews, a lot of you are pushing back, which I enjoy. I like the fact that people have their own takes on it. So let us know down below what you thought of episode 6, and we will be back with an episode 7 review next week. Later, guys.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.